Welcome, everybody, to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan, welcoming you here every single Monday, where we expose and give exposure to interesting Israeli businesses, nonprofits, or individuals making a difference. Today is Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, so we have a special Jerusalem Day podcast in honor of the event. Thank you, as always, to our sponsors, Nardis Advisors, as well as Eggett & Cohen. So who do we have lined up for you today? I'm going to replace my spotlight with him. He's well known to many and in circles in Israel and abroad. Here we go, Avi, you're on the screen. Good morning to Avi Abelow, who is host of the Pulse of Israel, as well as the CEO of 12 Tribes Films Foundation. The Pulse of Israel is a project of the 12 Tribe Films Foundation, which produces top quality content with VIP personalities that entertain, inspire, and educate about Israel with a deep analysis of the issues facing Israel and the Jewish people abroad and in Israel. And Avi is also the host and the founder of the conference, the Pulse of Israel Conference. They're having their third conference coming up in about 2 weeks' time on June 17th. And we can also wish him Mazal Tov. Avi actually just recently in the last, was it week or 10 days, married off the son. So Mazal Tov, thank you amongst all your busy schedule between work and pleasure that you're giving us time and being a guest on our podcast today. So Avi, shoot, tell us what it is that you do. Share with us inspiration about Israel, about Jerusalem, and about your Aliyah story. What brought you to Israel?
Wow. Well, thank you so much for having me, Lesley, and Yom Yerushalayim Sameach to everyone. It's a real pleasure being here this morning. And it is definitely a very special day. I guess I'll bring it all together very quickly. I'm blessed to have come to Israel already when I was 16 years old. My parents brought me and my siblings to Efrat in 1990. And the famous story that my parents like to say is my father was a very, very well-respected, well-sought-out Jewish educator in America, a principal of Jewish high schools, and he was being recruited by all these different schools for his next challenge. And there was one city in particular, a Jewish community, that wanted them for his school, and they were throwing money at him to come and come and be the founding principal of the new school they were going to be establishing in Los Angeles. And at the time, my parents were talking about maybe that we'd come to Israel. And I was already a very, very idealistic young 16-year-old boy in America, uh, very much connected to the understanding of Jewish history. Um, as I was blessed to grow up in a generation without screens. So I was a bookworm. I used to pick up books all the time, and I loved history, Jewish history, biblical history, American history, Holocaust history, modern Israeli history. So I really had an appreciation. And the second my parents mentioned the opportunity that maybe we'd move to Israel, make Aliyah, and then he was being thrown money to go be this founding principal in Los Angeles. So little 16-year-old me basically told my parents, if you guys decide to move to Sin City, as I called it, not Las Vegas, that's what I said for Los Angeles at the time, then I'm going to be making Aliyah on my own. And my parents said, okay, that decides it. So they came to Israel. This is back in 1990. Um, and thank God today, blessed to have and run a nonprofit organization, which is all about inspiring people with analysis and belief-based, inspiring truth about what's really going on behind the headlines, behind the news here in Israel. That's what I believe. We're very much living in redemptive Geula times and trying to help people understand in terms of daily goings on, the daily news cycle, how we can interpret what's going on in that lens. With regards to Yom Yerushalayim, I should actually hook it directly to my work because in addition to the Pulse of Israel programs dealing with current events and analysis, I also interview people doing good things for Israel, the Jewish people, hear their stories. And one of the programs that I did a number of years ago, I think it was actually during Corona, so we were stuck at home, was I interviewed my father about his memories of a divided Jerusalem before the miraculous Six-Day War. I can actually um, put the link here in the chat for everyone if they'd be interested in wanting to watch it. I just added it there for everyone because it's fascinating. My father was here, I think, in 1963, and he has pictures of Jerusalem back in from that time period. And it's a wonderful program where I got to probe him and ask him questions about his memories and show some of the pictures. And the biggest message I like to give over in general, but specifically when it comes to Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom Yerushalayim, definitely to my children and obviously in my Pulse of Israel programming, is regardless of what is going on in our lives, what the news cycle is, living here in Israel, we all know ups and downs, and we're definitely in a very more challenging time period of living here. We're still in the middle of a war post October 7th. But with it all, I try to give over the understanding of always keep perspective. And even when bad things are happening, or very bad things, or whatever trauma, whatever sadness we're dealing with, still to remember things in a historic perspective, in the historic timeline, and to understand how blessed we are to be Jews living today in a free, sovereign Jewish state of Israel, where not only are we in Jerusalem, but we liberated and have a reunited Jerusalem. All these things are things that we can't take for granted. We can never take for granted. We can never throw out the baby with the bathwater, no matter what other issues or what other things are weighing upon us in terms of challenges in life, whether as individuals or as a nation. And listening to my father's stories of experiencing Jerusalem as a divided Jerusalem. Who in 1966, what Jew in 1966 could have imagined, could have dreamt that all of a sudden the Jewish people would be sovereign and liberate all of Jerusalem? It's like today we take it for granted. Today I'm blessed to have my office in the center of Jerusalem. I can jump on a light rail and then just ride into the old city, whether davening at the Kotel or go up to Har HaBayit and daven on Har HaBayit. What Jew for thousands of years could have imagined doing that with freedom, almost freedom of religion, not in Har HaBayit, but at the Western Wall? What Jew for thousands of years? And yet we live today in this reality. And I don't want people to take it for granted. I want people to internalize and feel how blessed we are to be living in a generation where this is our reality. Saying Lashana Abab Yushalayim and singing that song is not a pie in the sky dream. We're living it. And we're part of the process of rebuilding Jerusalem. Again, we say, why Lashana Abab Yushalayim? It's built up. Why do we still say that? Why do we still fast on Tisha B'Av? Jerusalem is rebuilt, right? But no, Jerusalem is symbolic of the return of the Jewish people as sovereign, and we're still part of that process. We're still not all here yet. We're still not, so we're still working on what this Jewish state of Israel is supposed to be. So it's not just the physical rebuilding. Obviously, the temple still one day to be rebuilt, one day, but it's also the spiritual rebuilding of the nation of the Jewish people. And we here, the Jews living here, are blessed to be part of this process. And I just want people to wake up in the morning or once every times during a day and pinch themselves and say, "Oh my God, this is our blessed reality that we can't take for granted." We have to give over those messages to our children and to our grandchildren. Do not take this for granted. Just 80 plus years ago, we were almost exterminated. And for thousands of years, no Jew could have even dreamt of one day living in a free, sovereign Jewish state back in our ancestral homeland. And with Jerusalem under Jewish rule, Jewish control, It's like these are things we can't take for granted. So for me, the importance both of Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom Yerushalayim, despite what else is going on, is allowing us to refocus, take a step back, breathe, internalize, and feel the blessings and think about the blessings. I mean, those who go into the actual history of the Six-Day War, it's a miracle. It's hundreds of miracles that took place in that war. We were surrounded by armies that planned on destroying us and throwing us into the sea. I mean, I'm sure some of you have clearer memories than me because I was only born in 1973. But the state of Israel were literally digging up mass graves for tens of thousands of people because that's what they expected to happen. And instead of having to fill those graves, instead we liberated Jerusalem, all of Judea and Samaria, the Golan Heights, the Sinai Desert. It was like miracle upon miracle. I mean, obviously one of the miracles is, and people just take it for granted, but the unbelievable Air Force mission that allowed us to take out the Egyptian Air Force. Had they been successful in getting their planes off the ground, the war would have been totally different. And then there are miracles about a sandstorm in the Sinai Desert that, in a sense, blinded the Egyptian soldiers, even though our soldiers were surrounded. And we were able to win a battle instead of being massacred in a battle. I mean, that's just one of so many miracles in that Six-Day War that allowed us to be where we are today. And with all of my accolades and respect for our soldiers, and our commanders that allowed us to win that war. I'm one. I think it's I think it's hubris for us to ignore that there is a greater power out there that provided miracles for us that allowed us to win that war. It's us doing what we have to do, but we cannot escape the unbelievable overall power that I call God and believe in a God for good or for bad that allowed us to have those miracles that brought us to have the miraculous Six-Day War and allow us to be where we are today. This past Shabbat, at Shabbat Sheva Brachot of one of my sons, and believe it or not, we just married off two sons within the past month and a half. So this was finishing the Sheva Brachot for our second son. And over Shabbat, one of the grandparents of the Kala, her grandfather grew up in a divided Jerusalem. So he shared with us the feelings of euphoria of living in Jerusalem during the Six-Day War and the liberation of Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria. I mean, they were basically saying how all of Israel was in a euphoria, and it was unbelievable. And then they were personally involved in moving out to Kfar Etzion. Kfar Etzion was the first community reestablished in Judea and Samaria following the successful Six-Day War. It was the families, the survivors, the children of those who were who survived the 1948 battle of Gush Etzion. I don't know how many of you remember or have ever been to the museum in Kfar Etzion. Gush Etzion was called by David Ben Gurion the Malka, that was the queen. That's what Gush Etzion was called on the Kesher, in the army at the time, because it was understood that the hills of Judea, of Gush Etzion, were what protected Jerusalem. So Gush Etzion was called the queen, Jerusalem was the king. And then on Daled Iyar, the day before the state of Israel was established by David Ben Gurion and the founding fathers of Israel, Gush Etzion fell and was destroyed by the Jordanian Legion. And 250 Jews who survived, because they massacred many of them, many fathers and even mothers were killed in that battle. So there were many, many orphans from Gush Etzion, especially Kfar Etzion kibbutz, and many of them were taken to prison as prisoners of war in Jordan. But it was those children and those families who, upon the miraculous win of the Six-Day War, that they, together with the government, pushed for the reestablishment of Kibbutz Kfar Etzion, the first reestablished community in Judea and Samaria following that war. And the grandparents of my son's Kala were one of the first families to move out here. He moved out here as he just finished high school, and he came to be part of the first class of students in what today is called Yeshivat Har Etzion in Alon Shvut. And it originally started in Kfar Etzion for a year and a half before it was moved to the new community built here in Gush Etzion of Alon Shvut. And they were telling over their memories of and then he got married to his wife, my Kala's grandmother. They were actually the first couple to be married for Har Etzion Yeshiva in Alon Shvut. So it was like living history. And here, just days before we're celebrating Yom Yerushalayim, and again, Yom Yerushalayim today is the day that Kafchet Iyar is the day that Jerusalem was liberated. Kaftet Iyar is the day that Moshe Dayan liberated Hebron, and the rest of Judah and Shimon also was liberated from the Jordanian occupation at that time. So we were like hearing these miraculous stories and live the history where to them it's just their lives that they lived. And it was unbelievable to me for him to be able to share those stories so our children can hear them, not just from a book, not just from a movie, but from people who actually were part of living those stories. So it's important to me that as many Jews as possible hear these stories, internalize these stories, so that we have a deeper appreciation for who we are and where we are as a people today, beyond the headlines, behind the issues that are used to divide us. There is so much of what unites us, and there's so much for us to be appreciative of. So I try to use my voice and Pulse of Israel programming to help people connect with those things that we should be appreciative about. And obviously, one of those things is the fact that, yes, we have returned to Jerusalem, and we still have much to do to build up our nation, both on a spiritual level, both on a physical level. But there is so much to appreciate and not take for granted. So that's basically my short story, and I feel blessed to be able to use my voice and my programming to help people, Jews all over the world and non-Jews, but my target audience is Jews, to inspire them, audience of people from all over the world, including Israel itself, to use my voice in order to help give over some appreciation and internalize the inspiration, so that it's not just going on with life and being bombarded with headlines that depress us and demoralize us, but to take a step back from those headlines and be able to think, wait a second, despite these headlines, I don't want to let myself get demoralized, because I'm living in one of the most blessed generations of Jews in thousands of years, probably since biblical times. And I want every Jew to appreciate that and internalize that. And when they come to Jerusalem, to internalize that, not just to enjoy what they see on the sights and the history, but to translate that into how it impacts them and be able to translate that over to their children and their grandchildren, to know how blessed we are to be making history once again. And one of my I'm very big in trying to encourage Jews who are not yet living in Israel to want to come home and live in Israel. And the line that I use, and I think this is a line that Rabbi Riskin actually used to say all the time, is living in Israel, we're making history. We're the ones writing history. You don't have to sit on the sidelines and see it happen. The history of the Jewish people are being written today by us, by our children, by our grandchildren, and it saddens me when people do not focus on that, whether they're living here or not living here. And I just want to take advantage and try my best to allow as many people to refocus on that, even though we get bogged down in our daily our the daily grind of life that takes us away from the big picture of how blessed we are of everything going on around us, and being able to live here and being able to whether live or visit Jerusalem or any of the places throughout our ancestral homeland today as the third Jewish commonwealth of the Jewish people. So that's what I have to add as some inspiration for today's Yom Yerushalayim.
Right. Wow, Avi, we're not done yet. I do want to say, firstly, we couldn't have had a more appropriate guest for Yom Yerushalayim than you, and we can all sense and feel your passion that you have for what you do. And as we all know, as business owners, passion is what gets us to do things. So if you don't have passion, then you're not going to do as much. So that's absolutely. And I so agree with you. And for everyone that knows me, I'm also a half cup, full cup type of person that, yes, we have our challenges. Israel's always going to have its challenges. It's one of those countries that from the formation, but that's how we got to become where we are today. And seeing and being grateful for all the fantastic things that we have achieved and what we're actually still achieving on a daily basis. In other words, the country is an ongoing country in building, not just physically, but also spiritually. What I did want to ask you is, can you share with us, for the couple of minutes that we have left, since October 7th, how that may be your feelings about that? I don't know if you remember, I mentioned initially when I asked you to be a guest that this program, this podcast, was started as a result of October 7th. We started 2 weeks afterwards with the aim of giving ongoing inspiration to everybody who still needs it. We're still going on, it has not just ended, as well as to give exposure, as I mentioned earlier, to business owners and nonprofits who are having a very difficult time at the start of the war. How does it impact, and how did it impact on your activities in the Pulse of Israel? Maybe just for the couple of minutes that we have left, just share with us your take, from that.
Sure, sure. Great question. And actually, before I answer the question, I just wanted to follow up in what you were saying before, because again, I go abroad every once in a while to talk to Jewish communities. And even though one thing I do from it is fundraising, because I'm a nonprofit organization, I wouldn't be doing it for fundraising if it wasn't for the greater purpose, which is to try to wake up my fellow Jews and internalize how blessed we are with the opportunity to come and move home to Israel. And that's really my big purpose in going abroad and speaking every once in a while. And one of the main messages I give over is the understanding that when a person or a family finally makes that decision to make Aliyah, too many people have the mistake of thinking, that's it. That's the end of my journey. I'm finally going home to Israel. And I'm like, no, 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 no. The second you decide to make Aliyah and you come to Israel, that's the beginning of your journey. Because living here in Israel is what I believe maximizing and truly fulfilling our purpose as Jews to be part of the miracle in building up the Jewish state of Israel as it's supposed to be. And we can only do it by being here and being part of it. So don't think that when you land off the El Al plane at Ben Gurion that that's the end of your journey. You just began your journey of understanding and being a part of that Jewish people building up and being part of the miracle of building up the third Jewish Commonwealth. So that's upon that. Um, in terms of your question, October 7th, interestingly enough, for me, October 7th, again, I don't want anyone to take me out of context. In terms of on a business level, October 7th didn't change me because I've been having working using social media and videos and movies since 2006 to inspire Jews and non-Jews, but specifically Jews about Israel beyond the headlines. Ever since I produced my movie, again, I'm an organizational psychologist. If anyone needs any help, reach out. Even though I haven't done it for years, I used to work as a management consultant for one of the top four global consulting firms. I opened up their office in Tel Aviv when I returned to Israel in 2002. When during the second Intifada, when the economy here was horrible, I used to travel 2 hours a day each direction to work from Efrat to Tel Aviv. I called myself an Abba Shel Shabbat because basically I was on the road 4 hours a day. It was insane. But I was zoche to open up one of these major consulting offices for one of these major consulting firms. Worked there for a number of years, and they produced a movie called Home Game about the last youth basketball tournament that took place in Gush Katif in the Gaza Strip the summer of 2005 when the disengagement took place, when they were removed from their homes. So it gives a whole human story of what transpired that story, and I believe it's a movie that should be watched today by everyone because it gives context for the war we're experiencing and the modern history of what led us to where we are today that so many Jews, even Israelis, have already forgotten. So that's home game. I can add that link also. But that changed my life because all of a sudden I saw the power of media to get over the story and values of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. And that I don't know how many of us remember. I mean, all I'm sure people here remember. Um, 2005, 2006. There were no smartphones, no videos on smartphones, no WhatsApp, no YouTube, no Facebook, no social media, right? We were all the biggest social media at the time was talking to people or sending text messages, SMS messages. That was it. That's all that existed. But as social media started, I was one of the first accounts on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitter using my platform, using these social media accounts to inspire people about Israel, again, beyond the headlines. So I've been doing this since 2006. So October 7th was just even though it was the worst event to transpire against the Jewish people since the Holocaust, it was another event here that just allowed us to be able to get the truth out there to people around the world. The biggest change October 7th happened was not on me, but was seeing how many other people who all of a sudden became vocal in advocating for the truth about what was going on here in Israel. And so many people who before had social media accounts having to do with so many other things, whether they're businesses or fashion or whoever, all of a sudden maximize their presence and their accounts to stand up and be vocal with the truth of standing up for Israel and the Jewish people. So in a sense, I saw the ecosystem change for the better around me, even though it also changed for the worse because there's much more Jew hatred, anti-Semitism, anti-Israel stuff online than that existed on October 7th. But it's nice to see so that I'm not as alone as I was in standing up for Israel, taking in what I call being Mekadesh the Chol, like taking advantage of these tools that could be used for good or bad, but using them and giving a bit of holiness in them to help Jews connect with their Jewish identity, to connect with Israel beyond the headlines and understand more and be inspired. So again, to me, October 7th didn't change our business model at all or how we were doing things. We just continued, just gave us more reasons to get the truth out there to help Jews. Well, I'll put it this: it's not that it changed me, but the biggest thing that we saw change was how many Jews post October 7th totally in shock with the growth of Jew hatred and anti-Semitism. And this is part of what I talk about when I speak to communities. Like so many Jews expected, oh my God, we just experienced the worst tragedy as a people since the Holocaust, a massacre of insane, depressing proportions. Like, of course, the world would stand and support us, and especially the Jewish world that worked on allies, alliances with all these other groups all these years, always standing up for them, thinking that all these other groups would stand up for the Jewish people after October 7th. And instead, in a sense, so many Jews felt stabbed in the back that we were standing alone. And there was, I call it like the deer in the headlights phenomenon. Jews were in shock, like literally in shock. They couldn't understand why no one would stand up for us. So I saw our voice in the Pulse of Israel being able to reach out and help as many Jews as possible internalize this reality and understand why it's happening, why it makes sense, even though to our basic human nature it makes no sense. But Jews, we are beyond nature. We're not nature. We're the chosen people. God looks after us. We defy rationality. We defy logic. We shouldn't exist. We're supposed to be killed in every single generation that our enemies come and get us. Israel shouldn't exist, surrounded by billions of people who want to destroy us with more money than us, more arms than us, more planes than us, and yet we still exist and we're considered one of the strongest armies and economies in the world. Yes, it's due to our people, but it's also due to many miracles and to God above, or call it whatever you want. October 7th changed me going even deeper to helping people do a deep dive into the Jewish identity, understand reality, and have the strength to deal with this growing Jew hatred around us that I don't believe is going away, but unfortunately going to get worse. And I don't want people to be depressed about it. I want people to be invigorated about it, because the best way to fight off Jew hatred is by strengthening our Jewish identity, by inspiring our children and our grandchildren to be proud Jews and understand why they should be proud Jews. Because the second a Jew hater sees a proud Jew in front of him, well, they know that they're whatever they try to do to us won't work. So it's up to us to strengthen ourselves, and I believe that's the biggest weapon against the growing Jew hatred today. And you would say that the refocusing on this and doubling it down on that is the biggest impact on me and our work at the Pulse of Israel since the tragedy of October 7th.
You actually just took my last words out of my mouth. I was going to say, what's your final, your parting message to us in terms of moving forward? So you actually just answered that. Anything last minute that you want to add, just moving forward, your vision for Israel, your vision for Jerusalem, and also if you can mention how people can reach you, your
Sure.
website, how people can reach you. There was a question in the chat as well about that.
Sure. Best way to reach me is email avi@12tribefilms.org. Again, also you could follow us. We have a daily newsletter from pulseofisrael.com. You can sign up, or we have a more newsy website called israelandwired.com. Very politically incorrect, so only if you're interested in that stuff, then I'm the voice for you. Final message, which is really so, I touched upon this, but I can't emphasize it enough. Dismiss as much as possible the news and the headlines, because there is so much good in Israel, within the Jewish people. I believe, as opposed to the headlines. Again, I look at things in a historical perspective. I'm a student of history, and I challenge anyone to come back at me and tell me otherwise. I don't think we've ever been more united as a Jewish people than we are today. Jews of all kinds, whether religious, not religious, atheist, we've never been more together. Throughout Jewish history, we've always been separated, and always divisions, whether religious divisions, political divisions, it's always existed. But, and again, challenge me, do your own research. Never before have ultra-Orthodox, religious, not religious, atheists, hating religion, lived together and been so together as we are today. I mean, just the army itself, or just the hospitals, I mean, just our daily lives, we see that. If anyone would just ignore the news and ignore the divisive, demoralizing headlines, and you just focus on what we see and experience, well, yeah, every once in a while there are some bad things or things that upset us, but 99.9% of everything that surrounds us is so beautiful. Is so beautiful. We're developing such a beautiful, beautiful country that is a light to the nations in so many ways. And unfortunately, we get divided and we get demoralized because of daily headlines. So whether one follows the news or doesn't follow the news, take a step back every once in a while, at least once a day, and focus on everything that we have to be thankful for, so that you can inspire yourself about how wonderful and beautiful things are. And then obviously work on the things and be involved in things you want to work on. But don't lose focus of all the beautiful, wonderful things that we as a people are experiencing together here back as sovereign in our ancestral homeland. And that's it. Just the word that I like to give over is perspective. Always keep perspective in mind.
Right, absolutely. Amen, amen, amen. Well, Avi Abelow, thank you for being a phenomenal guest on our Monday Motivation Spotlight. Avi Abelow from 12 Tribes Foundation, Films Foundation, as well as the Pulse of Israel. So check them out on social media. He gave his details. Go to the conference on June 17th. Thank you for being part of the Monday Motivation Spotlight. Next week is Shavuot, which falls on Monday, so we will not be meeting. So wishing you and all of Am Yisrael a Chag Sameach. Thank you once again to our sponsors, Nidus Advisors, as well as to Eggett & Cohn Insurance. And if you'd like to re-watch this recording, or if you'd like to send it to others, check out my YouTube channel, either under Monday Motivation Spotlight or Lesley Kaplan channel. We have other phenomenal speakers as well. Subscribe, it's free, as you know. Am Yisrael Chai, may we have a quiet Chag, may we be leading into a quiet period as opposed to not what we're thinking that we're leading into. Stay positive, be passionate. Thank you once again, Avi. And I look forward to seeing you all again in 2 weeks' time on the Monday Motivation Spotlight. Thank you for joining. Bye-bye.